What's up, guys? This is Dual Killing Anime coming at you with another video. The Master D of the YouTube anime community, the Master Dual. That is me, AJL. What's up? Arc review. Let's get it in. And I'll say specifically that you saw in the title, I'm going to address and debunk a couple things before I do this arc review. Now, I'm going to be discussing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is made by Hirokoro Araki. And basically, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure will be covered in the Phantom Blood arc. And I'm going to call it the Phantom Blood arc. Okay? Which I realize is part 1 of the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series. But just for this video, I'm going to put this as arc since I really want to review JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Right now, I'm in the hundreds. I'm on chapter, to be specifically, I'm on chapter 132. Which means I'm either in part 2 or part 3. I have to research that later. But I've gone through the first 44 chapters of part 1, which is called the Phantom Blood arc. Basically, and what happened in this arc is the coming of the first Joestar. And his name was Jonathan Joestar. And the two primary characters that are in this arc are Dio Brando and Jonathan Joestar. And if you're a person who doesn't know about the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series, I superbly tell you to go check that series out, man. Go check it out. No, stop. I don't care what you're doing right now. You could be taking a shit watching this video right now. Pause it. Go check out all 620 something chapters of JoJo's. Watch this video again. I'm serious. But back to what I was saying. Primarily, Phantom Blood arc, in my opinion, really gets you into the series. And if I have to speak upon anything primarily about the Phantom Blood arc, is the fact that it introduced something that I've never seen in any type of shonen manga before. And this was the time that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was a shonen, so I'm going to address it through a shonen aspect, and then later arc reviews of this series I'll address it through a seinen aspect. But this is shonen right now. The world building that I see so far isn't strong, where you know what everything happened and there's more places explored, but the world building is strong because you are introduced to a lot more characteristics of the world, whether it's about the Eastern and the Western world and about the Ripple Man, or it's about vampires and how they plague on it. And then they tie history into it when they tie into ancient Egypt or Europe, and when they tie it into Romans and how they fought with Tarkus and Black Bruford and how things happened. And you know, they just reference time a lot, and a lot of historical things play in with Jack the Ripper too. That's what I liked about it, and that's what I liked about the world building, which was in the first arc about it. And when you speak upon the characters, I think of Dio Brando, I think of Speedwagon, I think of Jonathan Joestar, his father, Dario Brando, etc., etc., etc. And then I think of the story too. Well, I'm getting a lot of into things, but I'll start off with a brief summary of what happens in the story, and this will be like 2 minutes. It starts off with Dio Brando basically killing his father and going off into the Joestar family mansion, and then he sets on a mission to dethrone the heir, the son of the father who owns the mansion, the heir to the Joestar fortune, which is Jonathan Joestar. And the guy who's trying to do this is Dio Brando. So these guys at a young age develop a rivalry, which comes into Dio Brando trying to break down Jonathan as a person. Over time, 7 years over time, it comes to a climax where Dio tries to close in on exiting Jonathan out the picture, and he does some type of criminal acts in order to do so. You know, drugging his father, making sure Jonathan is going to be in these killing attempts. And it comes to fruition when he discovers the stone mask that Jonathan found had significant abilities when he had blood on it from Dio Brando's blood. Over time, this stone mask is revealed to be a mask that turns individuals into vampires. And Dio Brando sees the results of this experiment, of an experiment he had by turning another person into a vampire, and he applies them to himself. And he's caught, and Jonathan Joestar and Dio Brando first developed their serious rivalry at this point. And this is where the Joestar family legacy comes to fruition, because Jonathan and Dio, they fight in the mansion, and there's a lot of bad blood being facilitated already. He burns the mansion, Dio Brando I'm referring to, and he kills Jonathan's father, and he just causes mayhem. And Jonathan, being the gentleman that he is, being the kind-hearted person that he is, being the loyal person that he is, seeks forth revenge and seeks forth to stop his evil due to what he can do to others. So the story really comes to fruition when he finds a guy, or when a guy finds him, named Barone Zappelli. And Barone Zappelli is a mysterious man at first, but we get to know more about him. Basically, he was affected by the Stone Master's power too, and he wants to help Jonathan Joestar. And how he uses it to help him is by training him to use a specific ability. And this ability is the primary focus upon the first part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and it's called the Ripple. The Ripple basically focuses on, well, you can see a ripple in anything. You know the definition of a ripple. Like if you stick your hand in water and you see the vibrations coming water, that's a ripple. Or sound wave, a ripple. Or when you see a heart meter, when someone's about to die or you want to see someone's about to live, there are ripples in there. They're wavelengths. So this ability allows the body to push its limits by using specific wavelengths to heal themselves, to apply the outside world to heal others, or to attack others, to kill others. And there's a great science with this. They apply science with this about how it's put through the bloodstream, how it can be stopped by freezing. And I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you guys, but let me continue with the summary. And then towards the end, Jonathan has to go through a good amount of friends and a good amount of enemies to get to Dio Brando, and he loses Barone Zappelli upon the way. But the shit happens, and shit happens, really. And shit gets real, so Jonathan and Dio have their final confrontation, and throughout the first round, you know how hero stories go. The first round, Dio wins. The second round, Dio barely wins. But the third round, the hero comes back, Jonathan Joestar, and sends Dio for a whooping. And they couldn't pull the killing blow on him because the only thing saved from Dio Brando's body was his head, and the rest of his body was destroyed by Jonathan. Over time, as the main heroes think that the trial is over, they burn Dio's body, they crush the mask, they try to get rid of everything. Well, it's not over, because a henchman of Dio saves his head, and he was a fortune teller in the story. If you don't know what that is, then read the manga, I say. And he saves his head, and Dio Brando and this guy concoct a plot over a year or two after Jonathan is married to Elizabeth, the girl he was with younger, and you'll know about more of her. She's not primarily important to the synopsis, but like I was saying, you'll know about her. And when they come together, it's basically Dio Brando succeeding in killing Jonathan Joestar, because since Jonathan hasn't gone through the initial training of the Ripple, he can't devise it for himself. Most of the Ripple he had, and most of the Ripple energy he had, was from Barone. So basically, he couldn't use it as much as he could in their initial fight a year or two ago. So he was killed by the actions that happened here. And all Dio Brando wanted at the time was to kill Jonathan Joestar and to take his body. This will matter in part 2 and moreover in part 3, which everyone should know, and my subscribers should know, if you have seen the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series. Overall, when you talk about characters, Dio Brando is a cocky, hypocritical, narcissistic jackass, and he comes from an upbringing which would facilitate that. You know, his mom was abused by his father. His father was a crook, and you can see the rivalry that comes between Joestar and the Brando family, because his father initially was going to rob his Jonathan's father, and we can see that come to fruition as bad breeds bad and bad breeds evil. And also you can see from Jonathan where he wants to facilitate life for any kid, because what happened to him was when his mother died, it was only his father and him, and when at the moments before his death, he wanted to save a random child and his lover Elizabeth Joestar. It was good to see. And also with Speedwagon, I'd say Speedwagon is the definition of a loyal, he's a man's man. An aspect to, he's a loyal man who really didn't help, and he seemed like a strong person introduced in the first inning, but he was someone you could relate to, like Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho. He was someone that I could feel for. You know, I liked him, but he really didn't contribute much to the serious moments in the series besides as a support character. And Elizabeth was a love interest for Jonathan Joestar, and it carried, you know, the plot, you know, more. And in part 2 and part 3, you'll see how she plays into the whole bloodline and everything. And also, there's another character, Baron Zapili. He's the last one I'm going to mention specifically because he has a backstory of being affected by the mask, like I said earlier, and he trains Jonathan as a mentor, as a father figure, as a best friend, and the moments leading up to his death, he becomes a character who's accomplished his duty and the role inside of the series, and which is to be a mentor towards the protagonist. And as the first part concludes, the protagonist does die, but it builds more hype to, and it builds more strength to Jonathan as the initial protagonist, which is good. Basically, and I said, basically, man, check out JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Really, it's great. It's great. I'm not saying very good. It's great. A plus quality. Art, fighting, story, development, characters. Great. I'm on part 2, heading on part 3, and that's the longest storyline. Yeah. Yeah. So, it's been Dual-Clan Anime. Like or dislike the video, it does not matter as long as you get my name out there. You've added all the quality content with none of the filler, and if you don't know what that is, then you need to watch more JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Yeah. So, peace out. Give me your comments of what you think about the arc review down below. It is a great series, A to A+. Like the video, even though I said like or dislike, it doesn't matter. I'm hoeing. So, peace out, guys.